This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm
Yeah, it's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another Kick in This session. Today, I got my man Sean Mims. If you guys don't know who Mims is, man, y'all live under a rock, Geico, like, I don't know where y'all been, but this guy is not only a rapper, he's also an entrepreneur, startup guy. He's got a Cre8tor app. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his background. He's actually a tech type of guy, too. It's been that way for a while. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mims, Sean Mims, what's good, baby?
What's up?
So, thanks for coming on today, man. And shout out to my man Adam Charles out there from Boosto. He actually hooked us up, man. And I was like, you know how this happened, bro? I'm sitting in the bed. I don't know if you watch TV. Like, I don't have cable, right? So I only watch YouTube. Like, I got the YouTube Prime or Red. So so you cut the cord too. So at night though, sometimes it'll just play. Mm-hmm. So I woke up to your interview you did with BET.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dog, I need to get Mims on. Because I know I didn't know you were into the whole VC and, you know, raising funds and startup life, and you won TechCrunch, right? Pitch.
Yep.
Crazy.
Battlefield 2000.
Yeah. So I'm like, what? So I'm like, I gotta hit up Charles, right? So literally, I swear, like 3 hours later, Charles hit me up. I haven't talked to Adam in maybe 3 or 4 months. He hit me up on something totally like with the Boosto. I'm an advisor for them. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my, I got it. This presents my opportunity to go ahead. Hey, can you hook me up with Mims? I want to get him on the show, talk crypto and stuff. So, man, welcome.
Divine intervention, I like to call it, man.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Man, thank you for having me here, man. Definitely.
Yeah, tell the audience a little bit about yourself if they don't know. Most of my audience is I would say white males, but they're mostly into hip hop, so you know they should know who you are. But just give the audience a little background.
I'm a multi-platinum recording artist. Started out when I was really, really young. And I got the opportunity to have one of the biggest records in the country, #1 record called "This Is Why I'm Hot," sometime in 2007. Probably generated over $16 million plus in the music industry, and putting out music. And eventually, even though I love the creative side of music, I said, you know what, I want to give something back to my culture. So I decided to kind of dive into the technology world. But, there's a lot of in-betweens that kind of guided me or pushed me in that direction. And that's why I'm actually here now. A little bit different from what other artists, because there's a lot of artists in the space, but mainly on the investment side.
Yeah, like a millionaire, I know, is doing very well out there in the Bay Area. Who else comes to mind that's on the more on the VC angel side?
I mean, Nas has his own fund.
Nas, I totally forgot about that.
I know Akon is doing some stuff, I believe, in the crypto space.
Yeah, I'm going to be having him on too.
And then there's a few people that do stuff in the tech space. Like I know Ray J has done some stuff with some products, and so is Soulja Boy. So there's a lot of people that's kind of like involved in it. Jay-Z did the I think I want to say everything from Uber to Impossible.
When you get that type of money though on a Jay-Z level, those deals kind of come to him. He doesn't even. He probably didn't even know he was invested in Uber and those other ones. His funds get in the hands of those VC guys, and they how
just
it
take
goes.
it and make money on it. So
yeah.
But no, I mean, I guess kind of going back from a music perspective, I put out "This Is Why I'm Hot," which did really well, but when it came time to getting paid for it, that was where a lot of the troubles came about in my life. Like I said, I generated $16 million for a record label. And I think the first check they ever cut me was like, other than like my advance, the first check I ever got was like $30,000, $40,000. Wow. I kind of saw like some sort of a disparity. And in my mind, I'm like, you know what? I'm smart enough to know that this isn't supposed to be the case. So before I go ahead and do any other music, I want to kind of rectify this. And I went to like a 7-year litigation against my record label. And, you know, subsequently I realized then what the whole purpose of them underpaying artists is that they know you have to go into litigation to get your money back. And litigation is just as expensive, if not more expensive than probably the money that some of these artists are owed. So it's definitely like, I want to say, you know, it's corruption in a sense. So instead of
Absolutely.
me being a part of that system, I kind of wanted to just get people to understand it and start building product that helps navigate artists in the music world against that. So hence,
So what ended up coming of that litigation? Did you end up winning? Did you just kind of just like, look, I've spent way too much money. I'm not gonna deal with this anymore. Like, what happened with that?
So I realized, you know, 5 years into it, that either which way it's a lose-lose. You know why? Because you spend so much time chasing a certain outcome that you start to neglect everything else that goes on around you. And then the other side of it is, by the time you even end up, you know, getting any money back, you've already spent that money on the legal side. So if I would say that I win, absolutely not. I didn't win any. As a matter of fact, we won a summary judgment to take it to court, and then it got dismissed in the appellate court. Lord knows why. I have no idea. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. I just know that it happened, and that fueled me to kind of say, you know what, I definitely now need to, like, you know, start thinking differently than just being an artist, and just, you know, try to at least give something back, not only to myself but also to the culture that created me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So luckily though, you didn't have 360 deals weren't really around like that then, right? So
No, I didn't have
you were able to secure a lot of bags off this hit, I'm sure, from performing. And matter of fact, again, just to kind of go back, so Mims, guys, he performed at the Crypto Influencer Awards in New York, 2018. I was there. And yeah, that's how I even knew about him. I'm like, dang, this guy, I haven't heard from him in a while. You know, I'm just like, oh man, this guy, one hit wonder dude, whatever. But then I later learned, like, no man, this guy has moved on from that and doing bigger and better things.
Yeah,
so kind of tell us about the whole securing the bag with the performance and no 360 deals. That's got to be major.
Yeah, I mean, I say this, you know, like, and I'm glad you touched on it, because you know, prior to me understanding the business, like the whole one hit wonder thing has kind of been like, it's followed me around, I say, and I always like to think about. There's a few ways you could think about it, but from my perspective, I remember when I released This Why I'm Hot independently. We charted it, and then that was the reason why every single label wanted to sign me. And then you know, as I kind of decided who I was going to sign with, I remember the feeling of, once I signed that contract, how much control I lost as an artist. And it's not necessarily to bad people. It's not like people were just blatantly trying to rob me. I mean, I wouldn't find that out for years to come. But what I did realize is that I lost a lot of control from an artist perspective, because I went from having 5 people, maybe 10 people a part of my situation, to having 50 people with input on everything, from album cover to song titling to everything. So yeah, I never had a 360, but once you get a corporation involved with you from an artistic standpoint, you definitely still give up a lot on the creative side. And I think for me, what happened was, we went into record 1, which was This Is Why I'm Hot, which did very well. And then we went into record 2, which was Like This, which did pretty decent. It was a top 10 record on I believe it was top 10 on Billboard Hot 100. But you know, obviously nothing is ever as big as the #1 record in the country, but Like This did pretty well. And then what happened was, I wanted to go into a 3rd single on that first album. And while I was preparing to kind of like put it out, and I'm thinking I'm riding a successful wave, you know, 16 million to it, I got my first royalty check, and it showed me. I was like, wait, what's going on here? And immediately I kind of went into a defensive mode where I'm like, you know what, like I don't want to be a part of this record label, and you know, I want off. And when that situation happened, not going into a third single, even though who knows if the company would have even helped me push a third single at that point in time. You tend to become bitter. Like, people don't realize it. They don't see this part about the artistry where you go through this bitter phase and you're like, you know what? Like, I would have rather, and another thing people don't know about me, like I lost my mom when I was 13. So the reason why I got into music to begin with was because that was like a refuge for me. It was a place to go so that I can be creative and enjoy and get away from all the noise that was happening. So just imagine, like, you know, I'm 24, 25 years old. I'm the most known artist in the country at that point in time, especially from a new perspective. And then here you have it, a company came in and just yanked the rug right from under me. Personally, I didn't want to do music anymore. Like, it wasn't even in my, you know, that wasn't part of my future roadmap, so to speak. But I realized I had a lot of people in my corner and they were riding on me for my success. And we went into the second album. We entered into the agreement to do the second album with the same label. And it was just, the blood was already,
the energy was not good in studio.
Exactly.
Trying to do that second album.
Exactly. And you know, I thought I did something decent as far as a project, because if you listen to the second album, you'll realize that it was a lot more me. We released Move as the first single on the second album, which was a good warm-up record, but it wasn't intended to be a single. And I had a single lined up. It was called Love Roller Coaster. It was a record I did with Latoya Luckett. And I remember we were actually going to shoot, we were supposed to shoot the video. Had the green light to shoot the video and everything. And then I showed up to LA. Kid you not, like the week that we were supposed to shoot, I showed up to LA and nobody at the label was picking up their phone, responding to, like, you know, any type of scheduling. So at that point in time, I was like, you know what, like, this is wet. I'm done with this whole recording side. I'm gonna go on the road. I'm gonna, you know, make a good amount of money touring.
Thank God you could go on the road and make money without a 360 in that regard, right? Like, dude, exactly. So that's a blessing from the universe for sure on that one. Tell us about, Nipsey Hussle, his efforts, his endeavors to really doing like kind of what you're doing. You know, you're trying to get into the tech space. I don't know if you have any initiatives with like the youth, but tell me how Nipsey impacted your vision, your drive. How did that affect you, Nipsey's death, man?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll tell my only Nipsey Hussle story that I have. I mean, I remember 2009. He actually came to my album release party in 2009. I was in LA. I had one.
Really?
We chopped it up. It wasn't nothing. We didn't get into much of a conversation. We didn't converse much at that point in time. But it was like, yo, take my number. Let's link up afterwards, or let's stay in contact. And you know, I always got a lot of love in Cali on the West Coast, especially from a lot of the artists over there, because you know, I always showed a lot of love to the West Coast even before my career took off. So that's the one like memory I have of actually meeting him and interacting. And then it wasn't until maybe like 2 years ago, someone mentioned to me that there were a few artists that were trying to get into the crypto space, and his name popped up on the radar. And I said to myself then, I'm like, yo, thank God there's somebody out there other than myself who gets it. Because prior to that, it was just, you know, people didn't really know much about it, and they didn't understand blockchain or what blockchain was doing. And, you know, I always look at it like this. He's an artist that was relevant. You know, I can't say that I'm not saying that I'm irrelevant to the musical conversation, but I put out a record in 2007. And right now, as I check my watch, it's 2019 and we're in September. So I know for me, what it is that I'm not as popular as most of the artists out there would be. So when something falls on my lap and I start investigating what it's about, my word can only go but so far. So when you have people like him who's still relevant in the you know, relevant as a musical artist in the space, it opens up the world, you know, the world's eyes a lot easier than it would for me. Not that I haven't been championing the whole crypto blockchain race, but it's just refreshing to see that. And it's unfortunate because, you know, obviously, you know, him being gunned down. In my opinion, is way well before his time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you know,
So do you think that brings up another topic that we can quickly touch on, man? You know, when he got killed, a lot of people quickly jumped the gun saying, this is why you got to help your community from afar, and you can't be in your community helping. What is your take on that? Because I don't think that is the case. Like,
Yeah.
I think you do need to be, I put it to you this way. I think there are different positions for different people in our culture. Like Jigga, nah, I'm not expecting Jigga to be in the Marcyville projects anymore handing out turkeys, right? I'm just not. That's just not a good move from him. He can help from afar, and he and Beyonce have helped,
Absolutely.
big time, right? With just not even just with your boy Meek Mills, but a whole bunch of people that no one even knows about.
Yeah,
and then you have people that are in the community directly, like Nipsey was. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
I mean, you're absolutely right. Everybody has a position. I think if I'm stating mine, I'll tell you where I made mistakes and what I've learned. And the thing is that you make mistakes you're supposed to learn from them, right? If you don't learn from mistakes, then it's obsolete. Then it doesn't matter. And I could be wrong, and this is not that I'm right about my theory, but I feel like, and this is a real deep conversation, right? I feel like I commend Nipsey more than I commend a lot of other brothers in the music space, and even myself. And I'm gonna tell you why. When I got my first check, or when I first started getting paid, I moved out the hood. I moved away. I bought a house in Atlanta in the middle of nowhere, nice big house. And my whole ideology of success was, let me go now and live in a neighborhood that probably wouldn't have embraced me if I wasn't a musician, or if I wasn't famous at the time. And then I realized, I said, you know what the number one problem is with our community is that people are so eager to get out, but not eager enough to help out. And there's a difference, right? I grew up in Washington Heights, and I say that to say I grew up in an area, most New Yorkers who know it's really like big on drug trafficking, or people moving drugs around, to say the least. And it was one of the biggest places in New York for buying drugs and moving drugs. And that was what it was known for back in the 80s and 90s. It's right above Harlem, for those who don't know. And that was the stigma of what Washington Heights was about. And when I used to go certain places, like I used to go to school in the Polo Grounds, and I remember telling my teachers, like, yeah, I'm from Washington Heights. They used to be like, man, I feel sorry for you. Like, how do you even survive up there? And in my mind, I'm like, nah, like when I leave my apartment, I got neighbors, I got people you grow up with that you love. You got
you don't know you're in the hood when you're in the hood, for the most part, right? And until you branch out and see other sides of the
exactly. So I think the issue is that when we're young and we're black and we grow up in these communities, and you in Detroit, so you'll know way more than I do.
Yeah.
You hear like, you got to get out, you got to get out, you got to get out. And I get it. The argument is valid because there's so much jealousy that can go on, but jealousy's everywhere. It's not even in the hood, it's everywhere. You can go to Beverly Hills, there's jealousy there. But the reality is that the problem we have is now I go back to my community that's been completely gentrified. And
that's
you
a
have
whole nother subject.
Bro, yeah, exactly. You have stores, you have things, and I can remember having a conversation with some of my friends, like, yo, y'all better start like this shit is coming. Y'all better start, buying, like opening up stores and restaurants, do this and that. And now look at it, it's completely gentrified. Manhattan you can no longer afford to live in Manhattan. The normal person can't afford to live there anymore. So I commend Nipsey because I see the vision was to build his own neighborhood, to let them know, like, yo, there's value here. There's value in this area. And it's unfortunate because it took, the real question I want to know is, right, and this is probably something that me or you can't answer, is how many people were supporting him before he passed away in that vein, and how many
Not
people...
many.
Yeah, exactly.
Not many, because I got on them late.
Mm-hmm.
I got on him like between when he was getting ready to do Victory Lap, and then when he put that out, I said, man, this guy is prolific for real. Like, that was a solid piece of work that he put together with that album. But I had friends that had been on him way before. I mean, you know, back in the day, Blue Laces, Mailbox Money, all that stuff, like going to his concerts and stuff. And it's so unfortunate that it takes a tragic situation for people to jump on and see how talented he was, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, and you know, I mean, just piggybacking on that point, it goes back into the statement that people say, man, you got to give people their flowers while they're here.
Right.
Figure out a way to give them the flowers while they're here, not wait. And I wouldn't compare myself to Nipsey. I wouldn't compare myself to Jay-Z. I wouldn't compare myself to anybody in the business. I know my goal, what my goal is in the space that I'm in now. You know, my main goal is to break down. I mean, we had a discussion off air about Black entrepreneurs in the tech space and how funding isn't that easy to get. And I realize that, and that's one of the things that I'm trying. That's the area that I'm trying to break.
Let's talk about that, because we share that in common, man. I've had 2 tech startups. Neither didn't fail because they just weren't good ideas and I couldn't execute on them. I couldn't get funding.
Yeah.
I couldn't, and I had won awards like you got, not on the tech crunch or level, but I mean, we had gone through Techstars, mobility.
Yep.
There was a Techstars here. We went through that. Camp got accepted. That went through that. We won. I don't know if you know Power Moves, Nolia. Yeah, Power Moves. We won that. I mean, and so we had a lot of momentum, and we like, oh, bet we about to get, you know, some angel, at least an angel.
Yeah.
You know, nothing, man. We couldn't get an angel to invest. Couldn't get any. So, you know, the funds that we had won, you know, during those awards and stuff, kind of over time just dwindled out. We couldn't continue. There was a very small runway for us. But tell us about your experience, because when I heard you on BET, I think you talked about it on BET, or maybe it was another interview I saw you were on. Maybe it was another one. You were on the couch with a dude talking to him, I think in New York. But tell us about that whole experience, man, and the disparity.
So it's there. I mean, and it's weird because, you know, I think a lot of it relates to our value, right, and how we value ourselves, as men, as Black men, as a community, and I won't name names, but I'll go back to a deal that I had previous in the past. I had my own shoe company, right?
Okay.
I had partnered up with a shoe company out of Germany, who was doing high-end shoes. And I remember I had a concert out there, and he came to me. He was like, yo, I want you to take these pair of shoes. Like, if you can, just throw them up on your gram. And I'm not the most socially active person. I'm not like Twitter, Instagram person. That's not me. But his form of payment was he was giving me shoes. And if I threw them up on the gram, I could have the shoes for free. And I remember going in my room, and I'm like, yo, listen.
You don't need no free shoes. I'm sure you can buy your own.
You know, I said, I don't want your free shoes. I said, what I will do is I'll take a piece of your company and I'll help light it up here in America. And I could remember when we signed off on the deal, and he gave me, I think I took a 60-40% ownership here in America. So I had the rights to the shoe in North America and in certain parts of the Middle East. It was like almost like a licensing deal for a certain amount of time. And I remember sitting down with a few artists, and I'm having a conversation with them to say, look, like, I see what y'all are doing. I see the power you have. I said, instead of like, and it's not a knock toward the Nikes and the Adidas and all these other companies. I'm not knocking them. But instead of like rocking with them, why not just like, I give you some equity in this situation, and you know, you get your paycheck on the equity side. And a lot of them, I would say 98% or 99% of them was like, you know what? Nah, I'd rather just a check. I'd rather take a check. And that showed me what people thought of their value. And I used to always have the conversation with them to say, look, like, I know I'm not maybe as successful as releasing music as you, but I said, one thing you got to learn is that check, you're going to take it and you're going to spend it. It's going to be worth nothing in 5 years. But when you own property, intellectual property, when you own equity into a business that's worth something, that's something you can give to your kids, like your kids' kids. That's generational wealth that you develop when you own property and land. That's generational wealth. And I'm not here to preach, but the problem is that we always have this check mentality.
Yeah, man. That especially in the black community, you know,
Yeah.
it's we don't have that concept of delayed gratification.
So
Right.
so exactly. So why do you think you don't get funding? And it may not sound like it's related, but it is 100% related.
I'm gonna tell you why I think we don't get the type of, because there are numbers out here about how much funding black startups get. I think it's like less than 1%. It's something like that. 1.5% of VC funding gets funneled to that. John Henry, I don't know if you know Harlem Capital. He's out there in New York. There's a group of brothers got a VC. He made a good point, man. He was like, it's not necessarily that the white guys on the other side of the table are racist. It's that they feel comfortable investing in people that look like them, talk like them. You get what I'm saying? Are in the same kind of circles as them. So at the end of the day, it results in racism. But I agree with them. I was like, most probably aren't racist. They're just investing in people they're comfortable putting their money with. They're not comfortable putting their money with a cat with, like you and I. We got the hats on and more hip hop. You know.
I have another theory though. I don't
ahead.
disagree with that, but I have another theory. Here's my problem. Because I've been on the side of being an artist, because those companies know. See, I believe, black people move culture, right?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
We've never realized, we tend to not realize what our value is, but our value is culture. While the Jewish community may be good at owning, I don't know, certain styles of businesses, the certain Asian communities own their styles of businesses.
Correct.
What black people own and have always owned is the culture, the cool culture factor. And what happens is,
we don't monetize off of it.
We don't understand how to turn it into something that's equitable, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is that we're so quick to take a check for everything. Like, yo, here's $500,000, here's $1 million check for this, and take this. And then what they do is they use our culture to create their businesses. And it's not a bad thing. That's just business in general. But we need to use our culture to create businesses for ourselves. And it does, to me, it does link back to celebrity influence. Why? Because if I can pay an artist to do something that I would be giving equity away for someone else, then I might as well do it. And I think that's the mentality of a lot of the VCs. They have funds. They call them marketing funds, obviously, for the most part. And they have these funds that's allocated just for that reason, so that they can go and pay a bunch of artists to do things that they want them to do. And artists are okay with taking those checks, and they'll never ask for equity, because in their mind, it's like, yo, whatever, I'll just take the check. And, not for nothing. And this is probably bigger than the conversation, but there's nothing wrong with taking a check if what you're doing with the money is putting it towards something that is building generational wealth.
I got you. Yeah.
How many black developers are there that own, like you said, I mean, you mentioned a VC fund here in New York, in my city, my hometown, which is great, but how many of those are really out there and how many of those funds, not for nothing, and it's not to knock against anybody, but how many of them are leading rounds and not following? How many of them are actually looking exactly? Like, how many of them are actually looking at businesses and saying, you know what? Normally I don't lead, but here's a couple $1 million to get yourself off your feet. I'm not going to hammer you on the equity side. We'll take a nice portion of the
debt
equity.
Or something.
Yeah, exactly. So
let's talk about that, man. You've got it's on your hat, Cre8tor app. How did that come about? It's musically tailored, right? It's in the music industry that you're disrupting here. Tell us a little bit about Cre8tor app and how people can sign up and all that good stuff, because it's a 2-part component. I think you got something called Tune Token, which is more of the blockchain. I want to definitely talk about that. Let us know what's going on with that.
So Cre8tor app is a mobile studio and a production marketplace in the palm of your hand. And if you ask me why I do it or why I did it or created it, it's easy. I mean, we talked about, things that I've gone through in the music industry, and when I coming out of on the other side of it, I realized that one thing that people should never feel like they can't do is just be creative, and which is, you know, creating music more or less. And that one of the biggest problems in the music industry is that it takes a lot of money to even just kind of be an artist or have fun or you know, do any form of recording. If I go in the studio right now, I got to pay for the studio time or the studio equipment. I got to pay for the production, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but some producers charge tens of thousands of dollars, which most artists can't afford. I got to pay for the mixing, the mastering, and then I got to pay to market and distribute it. And most people who enter the world of music are not thinking about all this. They're really just thinking about creating songs. So what we did was we created an app that democratizes the whole process of music creation, so they can create original content. An artist would come on the platform, pair up with a producer that they like, unlock that producer's track, record, I guess, I don't know, a minute, 3 minutes, whatever they decide, a verse or whatever. And then they can then share that song across their social networks. And then what we did was we took it even a step further and allow them to shoot a video to that song, and they can also share that across their social networks. So first things first, we're a utility tool, a studio for people to come in and record. So if you're just looking to come and record music, you utilize our app. And then the second part of it is that we serve also as an artist discovery platform, which I think is probably the biggest part, which is what has enticed, in my opinion, it's enticed a lot of the VCs or the angel investors who actually invested in us to be a part of it. Because what we tell them is that you like the Justin Biebers, you like the Little Nas X's, and these kids that are coming up that make so much money and generate so much income in the music world. Well, here's a way to discover them before they become who they become. So we've kind of created that platform for that.
Nice. So is will.i.am a part of your whole camp? I see him on the site a couple of times.
Yeah. So so I mean, simply enough, my one of my business partners, his name is Eric Mendelson. He's also the CEO of the company. We can touch on that as to why, but you'll probably understand.
I already know. I
love him to death, but you know, in this world, it is
what it is, man.
Figure out how to navigate.
Yeah.
But yeah, my business partner Eric, he put in an application to be a part of a show called Planet of the Apps, which was a show that Apple had kind of like introduced for like a short period of time, and then they took it off. But in the interim of doing that show, they introduced you to 4 different, I guess, mentors or whatever. There's Gary Vaynerchuk, Jessica Alba, Greta Paltrow, and then will.i.am. And will.i.am was chosen to partner up with, at that point it was called Recorgram, but now it's Cre8tor, but partner up with Cre8tor to kind of help not only give his own personal ideas, but to also help pitch it to Lightspeed Venture Partners, which resulted in us we closed like $1 million seed round.
Nice.
And that was like sometime in 2017, which was great. I mean, once again, like great, phenomenal experience. But as you may know, $1 million in the tech world is like $1, you know,
man, 18 months maybe. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. If that. So, but that was a great experience, and as a result of it, you know, Will onboarded himself as an advisor to us and what we do on the Cre8tor side. Haven't spoke to him in a while, but hopefully, you know, I mean, he did what he had to do for us, and you know, I cannot complain about
gotcha.
Having him on the team.
So tell us about the blockchain side of this. That's pretty interesting. I jumped in your Telegram room a couple of nights ago and just checking out people. I think they were doing KYC and stuff. They're trying to get onboarded. Tell us a little bit about the Tune token.
So Tune is a little bit different of a beast. So I think sometime in like early 2017, we won TechCrunch Disrupt. So, you know, what TechCrunch Disrupt is, you know, I mean, you understand, you know, the whole, you know, the accelerator programs and things of that nature. Well, TechCrunch was something that kind of came out of, I would say kind of out of nowhere. My partners down in Miami, they pitched at one of their events, the events for TechCrunch. in Miami, and when they won that event, it only allowed them the ability to come to the New York event and have a booth on the TechCrunch floor, which value in itself was probably valued at about $10,000 or more just to have that booth there. And the booth was located in what they call Startup Alley or Startup Battlefield Alley, which is like a booth for a bunch of new emerging technologies for that year. And we had the booth there then and there, and we worked, I guess, TechCrunch room so well, like the show, I guess the event so well, they decided to use us as a wild card to pitch in their competition. And whoever would obviously win the competition would win $50,000, but the money is probably minuscule to the actual accolade. We weren't set to win it. As a matter of fact, someone from TechCrunch was like, look, like whether you guys win or not, this is a great exposure for your company. So just go up there and pitch your company, and there'll be millions of people looking at home. And we did, and we pitched it, and subsequently we ended up winning, which was a huge deal apparently for a lot of people. And that $1 million seed round that we had just closed, I mean, if I told you the amount of checks that people wanted to write us after the whole TechCrunch win, I mean, that win alone made that $1 million seed round look like it was worth nothing. We decided not to take any money and not to do a Series A, but in the interim, a friend of mine was like, yo, you guys do music, you should definitely check out this technology called blockchain. If you don't already know, like it's coming to the forefront, with coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum token, or Ethereum and Litecoin, et cetera, et cetera. So do your investigation. And it took a little while. I mean, I started more or less in the world of day trading, I would say, for myself. And then it led me into learning about products and learning what blockchain did for products. And then I started realizing, like, yo, this issue that I had with not getting money from my record label, this shit would have never existed had blockchain been around in 2007 and artists were using it, because it would leave everything transparent. So I said, like, this makes sense. Let me dive a little bit more into it. And subsequently, doing my research, I realized, like, blockchain technology for the music space in general, and for what I'm trying to do based on transparency, is perfect, man. This is like, to me, this is every step that I've taken to get where I'm at, everything that I've gone through. I look at it like it led me to this point where now I feel like my job is to try to change the music world by introducing blockchain into it. So
Nice.
we found a cool way to connect the Cre8tor app and the Tune token. But really, really and truly, the goal is to have something in the music industry that allows the ability for people to be transparent.
Nice. So, yeah, I mean, one thing I want to just point out, and I want to highlight and get your feedback on, you decided not to take a lot of those checks. Was that from you? You remember we said we make mistakes and we learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
What? Because, people out there, don't get it twisted. The VC world, it can be shicey as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a lot of deals that aren't really. I've known buddies of mine started a company, 100% equity, get excited by some money that gets thrown at them. They sign a deal, the term sheet they didn't really look at like that, and next thing you know, the company's not performing how they want, and the board kicks them out. They get absolutely nothing. It happens all the time. Why did you guys not decide to take any money for the A round?
Well, one, we had a pretty favorable condition with Lightspeed Venture and all the people who've invested in Cre8tor to begin with, and we didn't want to look like it was just a money grab and go out there and take more money than we needed to get to the next stage. And you're right. I mean, let's be honest. I'll open up. I could be honest. In the world of investment, you really care too less about. Most of the times, it's really about return on investment, right?
Absolutely.
So ROI. I mean, if I'm putting $100,000 into your business, I want to know how much I'm getting out of it, and that's just simple, business. I think with the world of VCs, they understand this so well that they'll give you just enough to get over the hump, but not enough to get the idea done.
Yeah.
And what happens is you end up being indebted to them,
Yeah.
and then you either got to go back to them for money or go and ask for more money on another series of rounds, which you're giving up equity for.
You're diluting your equity.
Exactly. And I start realizing that this is very similar to the music industry. Whereas, you know, like you said, by the time you go Series A, Series B, Series C, maybe Series D, to the point where you hopefully either exit or IPO, I mean, an IPO, if you can get to that point and you're still with your company, that's freaking great. But
those are outliers. That, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, just to get acquired is really what you want, man.
Yeah. And by the time you get to that point, you realize that you don't even own maybe even 2%, 3% of your company has been given up. So, and you did all the work. I mean, yeah. So that's why we.
But and the thing is crazy, man. We were talking about this before we started. How life is just, it's just a evolution of learning, man. It's crazy. Now on the other side, the flip side, we got these ICOs that went crazy in 2017, right? They got too much money.
Yep.
So you got two spectrums, right? You got the ones that don't get enough and they feed you, and then you got the situation with ICOs where it allowed the ability for startups to go out there and raise $30 million, $20 million on just a white paper and a website. And now, and I told people this, man, because I come from, doing the whole tech thing and startup and stuff. I'm like, look, when you give people too much money, it's just as bad as not giving them enough. Because now they're just going to sit there. There's no timeline. They're just going to just spend the money.
Venezuela, bro, or wherever, Puerto Rico, wherever the tax haven is now.
Puerto Rico, yeah,
exactly. Man. I mean, no, you're right. I mean, the ICO world. Oddly enough, we attempted to do that, and then we wanted to be in full, like, based on regulations, because that's always changing. Our goal was to be in full compliance. But anyone who kind of is weird because it's bittersweet, because anyone who got in before that probably made off with a lot of money.
But they're coming back at cats now, though, bro, especially in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely.
They're coming at a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I almost did one with my second company. We almost did one with that. And I'm so glad we didn't, man. It was something in my gut that just told me, like, my partner was like, man, we should do it.
Yeah, there's two parts to that, though, and I'm gonna tell you what my theory is. First part is that you're right. I mean, nobody wants to go to jail because they raised money for their company. The other part of that, though, I will say is you also don't. I think the way this world is designed, and I'm not gonna say it's a racially driven. I hate to use that as a crutch.
I hate to too, man. But the older I get, man, I'm just
you start realizing.
I hate pulling the race card. I swear I do, because I'm more intellectual than that to just use that as an excuse.
But you start realizing that the boys that come to play, the ones that can play in the space, usually what they do is they get the money now, and then they got enough money to pay the lawyers to keep them away, keep them out of trouble. And they don't look like you and I. Let me put it like that. And what I start realizing with the ICO space, especially as it relates to America and U.S. citizens, is a lot of the stuff that the SEC does is to protect the citizens of America. However, I guess the butterfly effect from that is that it also leaves a lot of people out on the other side of the investment. So whereas someone who's accredited can come in and invest in certain IPOs before they IPO, a normal person who may have heart in the same company and have the ability to say, yo, this is the dopest situation in the world, I wish I could put money in, can't because they don't have that stripe to say it. But I read a post, and I'm not sure how true it is, but I'm sure it's somewhat true, that said if you had invested in Uber or Lyft or one of these companies before they IPO'd, if you would have invested in them even $10,000, $25,000, that you would be, I want to say it was some crazy number, like 15 or 20 million dollars richer today. And I say that to say is that it's not like, you know, I mean, it's not like, I mean, you and I can't get together and say, yo, let's create a fund and scrape it around and get all this money. And then next minute, you know, but it's just to say that a lot of the things are meant to scare us to keep us away. And I think that,
hey, Mims,
you know,
they don't stop us from going to play the lottery though.
Of course.
Or going to the gambling.
Bro, exactly.
So, I mean, and I want to just let the audience know is, of course, there are layers. It's not linear. We're not saying that, you know, these roadblocks are for only for black people. No, it's a class thing too, right? We know that it's a class thing as well. We're just saying because we're black, we can just tell you from our perspective how it affects our community and affects us. But it definitely is a class thing. They want to keep that class, middle class, upper middle, wealthy, separate. And that's one way to do that. Are you familiar with Reg A? I think that was one thing that President Obama, I think, passed that I was, you know, I can say, okay, thank you for doing that. What are your thoughts on Reg A and that whole situation? That kind of changes the game, doesn't it, a little bit?
Well, all right. So there's like A, D, C. So brush me up on what A is, and then I'll tell you how I feel.
A allows you to, I think, gather people to invest up to 20 million. We're tier 1, I think, for a 12-month period, and then tier 2 offerings are like 50 million up to that amount, 50 million, and then that allows individuals to get in. I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I figured as much because the Reg A thing was what people were pushing a lot of the American-based ICOs to do.
Right.
There was Reg A, Reg S, and Regulation D, if I'm not mistaken. Those are like the 3 popular ones, or at least the 2 popular ones that I know of. I'm going to say this, and I say in the normal traditional space, all of the regulations make sense. In the crypto world, because it's the wild, wild west, I wouldn't take anything for face value because everything changes on a daily. So while you can pass certain things through the United States government, just know that the same government can change things to benefit them. And I think for me, I mean, my company has always operated above board and fully compliant. But then again, what is that really in a space where it's the wild, wild west? So no one really knows what
have you guys spent a lot of money on legal?
Absolutely.
I'm assuming
more money on legal than anything.
See, man, and again, that's just that layer of just sucking extra resources. Like if you raise $1 million, right? You're gonna spend $300,000-$400,000 on legal.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense, man.
Yeah, that's why. See, and this goes back to my point, right? I said every race of people has what they're good at.
Yeah.
Controlling their value, and I'll let you kind of dig behind that.
I got you.
I don't want to come across as a person who's racially charged, you know. But we understand. I mean that the lawyers of America make a shit ton of money, and it's for a reason. They control the space. They understand the laws that are passing before they even get passed, and that's their way of like staying ahead of the curve in any business. That's not just in investment. That's in music, everything. Yeah. So it really goes back to us like understanding our value and our culture, and I think that is being able to push the culture forward. But yeah, I mean, as far as the regulation is concerned, absolutely. I mean, if it's something that someone can take advantage of, I say do it. You know, if you have the ability to take advantage of it, do it. The issue is that, and this goes into, it takes money to make money. In order for you, like we just did, you know, without saying too much, we just, you know, went through our whole legal, I guess, situation. And, you know, it's expensive. I mean, it's expensive to operate a company. It's expensive to stay above board. It's expensive to be fully compliant. And you almost have to raise money just to do that.
Yep.
Which is crazy. You have to raise money to be able to create a company so you can raise money. So it's unfortunate, but you know, like you said, it's a lot of it is meant to keep the people out. What I'm hoping is, and don't get me wrong, I'll say this, like, create an app, that's my thing. Tune
Yep.
token, that's my thing. I love what I do, but my goal is to spread knowledge, the knowledge of what I'm doing to the next
Right.
person, so that they can
Right.
take it and make it bigger than me.
Right.
Because
Have you
that's
thought about starting a VC yourself, man?
I do when the time is right, and also when people trust in me, because I don't have a technical background. I'm not a coder.
Right.
I'm from the streets of Manhattan. I won't even lie to you. I didn't go to college. I went to community college for a year, and I decided to leave for some music. Everything that I'm learning is because I'm bumping my head, and I'm saying, okay, cool, I bumped my head. Let me not do that again. So hopefully, what I could do with my knowledge is bring it back to some, people like yourself and
Right.
myself and other people that kind of think in our vein, and we can collectively, like, figure out how to navigate, because now it's all about power, right? It's all about, who gets there and who gets the power, and who kind of takes that power and starts bringing it back to other people. And I think that that's my goal. I've made some great headway in the tech space, and I'm making some great headway on the token side as well, like in countries like Korea,
Yeah, we
Japan.
didn't talk about that. I did a sponsor review of a company out there called a Muse. You ever heard of a Muse?
That sounds familiar, but I'm not sure if it's the same thing you're talking about.
Okay, they're out in South Korea, and it's like some platform. I can't remember exactly right now, but they're they have a huge music scene out there, huge blockchain scene. So when I heard you guys were launching that, I'm like, that's perfect, man. You may not even have to hit the US. Like, literally, if you can hit critical mass in South Korea, y'all will be
now
Gucci.
You understand. Yeah, you understand. That's my goal. So my goal is penetrating markets that love music, love technology, love crypto. Obviously, Korea is probably one of the Korea and Japan are probably the biggest markets on that. And then we also bring in, like the westernized influence. We bring in that world of American entertainment and talent that these places don't necessarily have. Like, one of the things I've learned about Korean culture is that their music scene is prominent, but they operate totally different than the way we do here in America. And not saying that one is more right than the other, but introducing the values that I have from this market seems to be really beneficial for the Korean market. And now my goal is to build relationships with the artists over there and kind of help navigate to bring them here. And in interim, they kind of help me out on this guy here. So.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. Yeah, that the name I'm thinking of, BTS. That's one of them crazy. I'm like, I've never heard these guys, and they like killing it over there. Big. That's crazy, man. The world is definitely bigger than the U.S., man. That's what I'm learning every day, and just trying to broaden my horizon. But yeah, man. Any last thoughts, man? Good conversation. I definitely want to have you back on in the future. But any last thoughts for the audience?
No, man. I mean, honestly, this is your platform, so I definitely appreciate you for giving me a voice on it. And honestly, it's refreshing, because what I learned, even when I did the BT thing, I was reluctant to doing that interview. And the reason why is because I thought people would harp on my past and not on my present and my future. And I was reluctant to doing it. And then I had a great conversation with the executive producer of that particular show. And I was like, look, like, I don't want to just talk about that. I want to talk about what I'm doing now. So
it seemed like they cut you short, though.
It was a real. It was
the way they edited it. It didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Am I right?
I think we shot for like 6 hours, so there was a lot of information in there, and I think they tried to narrow it down to about 45 minutes. And I'm needless to say, this is my point for like thanking you for giving me platform like this, because I know what they did. They had to do it that way from an entertainment standpoint, and I respect them for it. But what happens is it opens up the world for people like yourself, for me to be interviewed on here and kind of give a different perspective. And this is my message for the audience out there. It's not a black or white thing. It's just a message, is that, we're not defined by, sometimes what we do is we define ourselves by the things we've accomplished in the past. And that's great. I mean, we talked about TechCrunch as an accolade in my records. But what I want ultimately is I want people to see the vision I have for the future, and you know, this is it. This is what the future of music looks like for me, for honestly, for the rest of the world. And I'm hoping that people will go out in support of it and really understand what I'm trying to do to move the music culture. And you know, I appreciate you for giving me the platform to do it, man.
Oh, absolutely, man. Can U.S. citizens participate and purchase the Tune token? How does that work?
Yeah. If you're accredited, you can. But
Okay.
okay.
I was just making.
We try to stay away from everybody. I mean, you know, the reality is this: look. I built an app I think is beneficial for artists around the world, especially here in America. So whether you are, you know, I don't care what you're 10 years old and you live in Detroit, or you're 25 years old and you live in Beverly Hills or whatever, or New York. This app is for you. If you're in India and you're watching this app is for you. As far as the token side, we're doing some amazing things on that side, but we're also trying to stay above board and be extra cautious, because I am not interested in losing my freedom, because, you know, there's no amount of money in the world you can give me to lose my freedom. So the goal is to stay above board. So right now we're not accepting, unless the person is accredited, we're not accepting any funds from U.S. investors. Okay,
that's cool. Just wanted to make sure I had that clear. But you guys can definitely check out Cre8tor app. That's with an 8 .app. I'll leave a link in the description of this video. Check this out if you guys are interested. Aspiring artists, you want to really break that barrier down and try to connect with the right people in the game. Definitely check this out. Mims, thanks a lot for joining me today. It's your boy Crypto Blood, and that's another Kicking It session with my man Sean Mims. We out of here, people. Holla! I could sell a mill saying nothing on the track.